Adam, you're muted.
Oh wow. Okay. I think I'm not muted now. Wow, that was okay.
Welcome to live.
Back, yeah.
Welcome to live radio.
All right, let me start this again. 3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Hobby Hotline. This is episode 283. I'm here with two of probably the most historical knowledge people within the hobby. We've got Uncle Rich Klein and we have Dr. James Beckett. Rich Klein, how's your week been going? What's been going on? How you been doing?
I'm doing fine. I mean, hey, every week we stay ambulatory. It's a good week. And I'll probably stop by Triple Cards today because I do need to get a few small supplies and, pick up a couple heritage packs while I'm there. So I'll stay connected and, just generally enjoy. And I have to make my monthly or every 2 month stop. I want to make my every monthly or 2 month stop at Wally World. So if there's a blaster I see that's interesting, I'll probably pick that up there too.
And Dr. Beckett, how's your New Year's? How do New Year's go? How's your New Year's been going? How's your week been?
It's great. I've been a little bit sick. I've had a little bit of a kind of a sinus infection, maybe flu, but it's just a lingering kind of cough, and so that's no fun. But for us hobbyists, what that means is you got to stay in. Well, what could I do when I'm staying in? I could mess with cards. I'll never run out of ways to organize my stuff. But first of all, Adam, congrats to you mentioned it's episode 283, which is 280 episodes more than most podcasts make it for Hobby Hotline. And then you and Danny with Hobby News Daily passed 250. So again, hats off because I think both of those are hobby content driven kind of by the people. And so that's what this show's about. That's why I like to participate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I love podcasting. It's something I've been doing really kind of when I started getting back into the hobby. Podcasting was something that kind of all came together when I was getting back into it. So, I was, when Danny reached out to me about doing the podcast, he had another host, and me and Mike Jokum were the two hosts, and it was really fun. And so when I had the opportunity to take over the full-time show, I was ecstatic about it. I mean, we 250 is 250 in less than a year because we launched in like April, and we'll move on. We don't have to get into this doesn't have to be a hobby news daily
congrats
or whatever.
Congrats,
but yeah, thank you. I appreciate it
because you guys are the prime movers.
And
absolutely.
And as we said before the show, as I say, the best way for me to prep for whenever I'm on is to listen to your weekly recap. I know I should listen daily, but the weekly recap gets it all done for me, and I like that. And the 45 minutes on a Saturday morning is time well spent.
Right. And so basically to start off today's show, I wanted to give a shout out to a couple people who have worked on this show in the past, Logan and Val, who have they're voting for the inaugural 2024 class of racing Hall of Fame is open. So if you go to, I'll actually put this in the chat just so that way everybody can access it easily. If you go to here, this will be the post where you can see the voting, and you can get your voting in for if you're into NASCAR and you're into cards like that. Also wanted to give a shout out to some of the people in the chat saying hello. We have Mad City Brew, everybody saying hello. Good morning, everybody. If you guys have topics and stuff you guys want us to cover on the show, make sure you drop a comment. Also, make sure you leave a comment with where you're watching the show. I always try and see where everybody's watching because I think it's cool to have a show like this where people watch it all over the world. And, in time, we've seen so many different places, so many different countries watch the show. We have our back-end analytics and stuff like that. But it's always interesting to see like the people who are in the chat and who are participating in the chat. And I love seeing that kind of stuff.
Bob, I will tell you that I appreciate your wife's opinion. However, I think she's a little bit misguided on that. I think not seeing I have a face made for radio, and we'll leave it at that.
So
yeah, you've got a voice made for StreamYard.
Yes. Well, Jim, do you remember when we were doing when it only lasted a few shows, but we had a guy named Greg Cromartie, and we were doing Beckett Radio in 1996. Talk about being way ahead of the curve. And Greg would tell
It
me
was on the internet. It was on the internet, but it just
on the internet. I don't think any of those episodes survived, but I'd be a featured person on each episode, and my voice was a little higher pitched then. He goes, "No, higher pitch is actually great for the internet." It was like, whoa, wait a second. So my voice is actually was better for the internet than it was in real life.
It's gotten deeper, yeah. Rich, I think those episodes were only available on our website.
We did them live because we got people who called in or whatever. Maybe they were, but I would bet nobody saved them. I haven't talked to Greg in a long time, but I wonder if they even still exist.
Okay. Maybe I'll think about that. Maybe somebody else would know. If you don't know and I don't know, Rich, that's not a good sign.
Oh, I haven't thought of them probably in 25 years, but talking about not seeing was like, okay.
Yeah, like I said in the intro, like I think both of you have so much hobby knowledge, like probably some of the most hobby knowledge of two people in this industry. And Rich and I were talking before the show about just industry and like where things have gone. And so, Rich, did you want to give your shout out now, or did you want to wait till the end of the show?
Now, there's a couple things talking about yesterday and today. About a week and a half ago, I lost an old dealer friend of mine from New Jersey, Steve Reeferson, one of the finest people I ever met in the hobby. And I'm going to digress and tell a little story. I bought a whole bunch of stuff from a dealer at one show, and he was next to Steve, and he started saying to Steve, "This guy stole stuff." He says, "No, he does not steal. He's never stolen a thing in his life. And if you do that," and he was younger, he says, "I'll beat the bleep out of you." And so Steve always defended me, and I always appreciated that. And, he always brought the best bagels and best donuts. And he'd come down to Dallas when I first moved here, and he could tell me I would bring the bagels for my Jersey friends. And he could always tell me which of the Jewish style delis I bought the bagels from. He had worked in Dallas for 6 months, and he actually knew every bagel place. And he'd always bring bagels and treats with him to the show. So I knew I was always going to get fed if I saw him at a show. And so Steve, rest in peace. I know one of the sad things when my wife got sick with COVID and I couldn't go to the Atlantic City Nationals, even though he wasn't in great health, he did make it to that show, and I never did get to see him for that closure. And so it's a little bit sad. And then I also saw on Net 54 message boards, Ted Zandakis, I can never pronounce his last name correctly, had a fall last year. He didn't break anything, but it's not been a great rehab for him. And we want him to get well soon because Ted is an original source expert. He opened packs of 48 Bowman, 48, 49 Leaf, 49 Bowman, etc. There are very few people left in the hobby that have that memory and remember being primary source people about what it was like to actually open those packs and what came out of that. And Ted, being from the Philly area, got to see all the stuff Bowman did that the rest of us didn't get to see.
Back a long time ago, there were other people out there. Ted was distinguished by his willingness to share it freely, because I think other people knew those things, but Ted stepped up and said, "I want this knowledge to be known." And so he was very generous with his personal experiences with you and me both, Rich. And, Steve wasn't that old. Was he in his 70s?
Steve was 82 years old.
No way. Well, I haven't seen him in a while, but
yeah, Steve was like 82 years old. His son wrote and I'll try to find it to send it to you privately. Okay. But his son wrote a very, very moving piece on Facebook when he passed. Yeah. What it was like with his dad. But Steve was like 82 years old.
Okay. Well, that's still not that old to me.
No, not that old to me either now. But
yeah. So, like I said, just want to make sure that you got. I know before the show you had mentioned you want to obviously give these shout outs to some of the, I guess, hobby originals. Like I think that's probably a good way to describe them. Like people who, even before I don't mean to sound, but even before the internet, these people were in sports cards and they were doing, they were doing what a lot of us like doing today. They were opening, like you said, those 48 Bowman packs and, one of the originals in an era where that cards were so much different than they are now. And I mean, I guess that's one way to transition into what our first topic is going to be. That I thought this was kind of interesting this week, actually. Um, this week was the release for Prism Football, and if you wouldn't know if you went to any of Panini's Twitter or Instagram or anything, like it really was surprising to me that I didn't really know about it until I just saw people opening up packs on Twitter, and I was just like, wait, when is this out now? And it was out on Wednesday. Wednesday was the first day of when the packs were open. And I mean, the big thing is that like there's no CJ Stroud or Will Levis or Bryce Young autos. And I mean, so I'll start with you, Rich. Like, what are your kind of general thoughts on Prism or Prism release from this past week?
Well, my general thought has nothing to do with this specific release. Brian Gray did a viral post about how it's a danger sign for the football card hobby that there are no, because of the way the Panini Fanatics things work out, there's no of those rookie signed cards you mentioned and the adverse impact it can have on products. Prism itself has had a fascinating story over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went through the boom during the pandemic, Prism prices truly exploded. And it was exploding before, and I'm going to switch sports here, when the Luka Prism, which is a widely available card, became like the most graded card in the history of the world. That's not true, but it seemed
close enough.
That Panini raised their prices accordingly because of market demand. And so now they're in a kind of an interesting position with pricing and market demand, where Prism is, I think now we could call Prism their flagship product.
Right.
And it's an expensive flagship product, but it's their flagship product. And so people look forward to it.
Right, definitely. And I mean, I thought you had an interesting point about kind of Prism's history throughout the years. I mean, I don't know if necessarily you could say the rise and fall of Prism. Like, I mean, because it really started out like it really wasn't super popular. Then, obviously 2018, 2017, 2019 kind of really grows in popularity. But then I mean, I don't know if you can necessarily say the the production outweighed the demand, and which is crazy to think about with Prism. Like I went to Walmart a couple days ago and there was still like last year's Prism basketball on the shelves, and that's not Prism football, but at the same time, it just is a pretty interesting. I think there's going to be an interesting case study done on I guess maybe the rise and fall of Prism. And so Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you this question. Like, throughout the years, have you really seen like a set like Prism kind of like be invented and then sort of grow so much in popularity and then maybe peter out a little bit? Like what's your experience been with certain sets like that? I guess, I mean, just ones that have kind of grown and gotten like pretty wild, like in terms of the popularity of them.
That's the hope of every brand, Adam. I mean, basically you put it out one year and then hopefully it's going to go up. You're going to sell more the next year. What Prism was exceptional about Prism is not only did the production quantity go up each year, the price went up each year, whether it was the primary market or the secondary market. And so they had a huge winner pretty much in all the sports. And so, yeah, I think it is their premium. Well, it's their flagship thing. And it's just, it became a must. It became a must have for, key rookie cards and things like that. But yeah, the hobby doesn't like it if there are takebacks. It feels like this year was a takeback compared to previous years with the lack of availability because of the preemptive signing of those rookie quarterbacks by Fanatics. And so it's not illegal, but it means, and you showed the packaging, Adam. The packaging is not able, and so you were mentioning, I know you mentioned on Hobby News Daily about the marketing of it and that it was a little more stealth. Well, they can't brag about something that they don't have. What they used to tout is not there. And so it doesn't have any kind of rookie feel in any major way on the packaging. And so I guess they think it's just going to, okay, here's this year's Prism. We don't want to overpromise on the box, but here's what you're going to get. They don't want disappointment, but there have been takebacks. It's not what you would expect if you were not paying attention.
Right. Yeah.
I think
Go
Ziggy has
ahead,
a
Richard.
good point, though, in that you may not get autographs of the key rookie quarterbacks or the key people, but you'll get the parallels. And I mean, I look sometimes at the number of parallels, and I see them in the ComC database, and my head just I can't wrap my head around how many there are. But you can buy and you can search for a rainbow of any of these rookie quarterbacks, and you'll have yourself one heck of a search. So there is opportunity if you zig when everybody else zags, or if you zag when everybody else zigs.
Right. No pun intended with Ziggy in the chat there.
Sorry, Ziggy. I didn't even realize that. Okay. Whether you twist when people turn. How's that?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree that Prism became the flagship product for Panini. And I mean, the question that I always kind of ask myself, and I think about all the time, is like, did Prism become popular because people wanted it, or did people want it and that's why it became popular? I think it's like a chicken or the egg type situation where, like, what did it become popular because it was hard to find, or like I said, again, I mean, and that could be the case, but or was it hard to find because so many people wanted this product, and it was I mean, even like, I'm just going to go back to Zion's year, you could still probably find that product, and I mean, I remember buying blaster boxes for like $40 or $50 at a hobby shop, and they were only supposed to be $20, but I bought them secondhand from a hobby shop because I couldn't find them at any of the retail stores. So like, this is I don't know. I'm wondering if this is going to be I don't know the word that I'm trying to use, like maybe like a monumental shift year for, which, I mean, I think it probably will be, just because Panini is going to be losing football. And actually, I mean, I think that's an interesting question, Dr. Beckett. I'll ask you, is like, when in the past we have seen this shift where one company made the cards and now another company is going to be making the cards. So like, what was, do you have any like major thoughts on like when it went from Topps to Panini, or when a different company takes over? Like, what are some of those things that you've seen, like, in some good things, maybe some bad things of some of the changes of the guard, I suppose, like over in the past? Like, what has that, you've probably seen that happen in the past, correct?
Yeah, over the last 30 years. I mean, the licenses are won and lost. In the age now of a single licensee for each of these sports, it's somewhat problematic, but you can look and see what Panini's done anyway in baseball. So there's still sometimes are ways to get around the lack of the full licensing. So Prism is a substantial brand. It has a lot of brand equity and a lot of followers. And so if they're able in any way to continue to do Prism type products with that brand, with, again, being within the legalities, but over the next couple of years, their ability to do certain things is going to be slightly curtailed or completely curtailed. But Prism, I think, can live on. And so does that mean Fanatics has to buy Prism as a brand? I think they've already had those discussions, and it sounded like they didn't go very well.
Right. Yeah, and so I'll we'll kind of move on to the next topic. Rich, I've got one more question for you. Like, to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, do you think that in any way not having those autographs, like, of those top quarterbacks in this year's Prism product, do you think that there's any potential that could end up being a good thing?
Well, yeah. Yes. I mean, and this is what I pointed about Chasing the Rainbows. And Chasing Rainbows is also the name of my favorite song by Blue Magic from 1975, but that's a different subject in entirety. But Ziggy did bring up a really good point. And I think he's onto something, that if you look for ways to do things, it's possible. And that's why I brought up the rainbows, because it may, maybe you don't get the autograph, but if you've got 3 cards in the CJ Stroud rainbow that are 10 or less print run, or that you just can't find, you're going to either open the product or chase the Strouds or chase the Bryce Youngs or chase whomever until you get those cards. So it is definitely a plausible situation, especially because Prism is still a popular, and Rex was saying it's his currently it's his high. And by the way, shout out to Rex and his team at both stores that always turn us on. We appreciate that. Is that he's saying it's selling like hotcakes. And as such, it's showing that the customers understand that and there's ways around that. And I'm sure Rex, being a solid business person and an honest person, if somebody asks and he's telling them what you can and can't get, when I say he, that's his team, is telling them what they can and can't get out of those packs.
Right. Definitely. And I mean, look, as long as I feel like, if you're running your business and if you have Prism and that, as long as you're promoting it in a way that's not like, hinting that there could be autos in there, like I think that's fair game. Like I think the one thing that happened this week that I thought was interesting, that this actually isn't part of the show, but like the Disney 100 cards had like they had the autos that weren't on they were printed on, and I was like, that seems kind of weird. That feels like it was kind of overlooked in the grand scheme of all this marketing. So it's like, if you are promoting a product in a way that at least you're giving the customers the information that they need, then I think that's definitely important. So we'll wrap things up there with that topic at least, and then we'll move on to kind of an interesting another interesting, I guess, fact or something. But so Ken Golden is on a hoops card from this year. He's on the Joel Embiid hoops card from this year. And I'll start with you, Dr. Beckett. Like, in the past, have you seen that celebrities being on cards have made that much of a difference? Like, we obviously know the iconic ones of the Menendez brothers, and there's the one with the John Morant with the rapper in the back. That's kind of a more modern card. Then and then Rich and I were talking about some cards early that from like 2007 or 2006 with Derek Jeter, that they put Mickey Mantle in the background, and then there was like a Red Sox one where they put they kind of trolled a little bit, and they put the Rudy Giuliani on the Red Sox winning the World Series, which is obviously as a Red Sox fan, I think that's pretty funny. So Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you this question. Like, do you think that cards like this, I mean, obviously in this world, Ken Golden is a celebrity, but like in the grand scheme of things, do you think that celebrities or people in the background of cards like makes, what are your kind of thoughts on that overall, I suppose?
Well, if it's too prominent, you've got to get permissions. I think. I mean, if you're gonna market it, but if it's incidental like that, I think it's cool. I think Ken is absolutely a hobby celebrity, a big time hobby media celebrity, and well deserved for being around a long time and putting his mug out there. And so, also, it's not cheap to sit on the front row.
Right. Yeah.
I've got great seats, but I have not seen myself on a card. Maybe I need to go to more games and move up my seats a little bit.
Right. Yeah, y'all, you just got to get a show on Netflix. That's just get a Netflix show, and then next thing you know, you'll be on a card. So Rich, I'll ask kind of you the same question. Like, what are your thoughts on cards with celebrities in the background? Because I feel like
it's also more than celebrities. Our departed former Beckett teammate Mike Hirsch, and there was I forgot who the Philadelphia Flyer was, but our dear friends Phil and Joni Spector, you could see on the background of some 1990-91 Pro Set card. So that was just fun for us. Not that Phil and Joan were celebrities, but we knew them, and it was like, for them, it was really cool. And I think Phil would actually keep track of how many cards he signed. I still had them. I think I was Joan's third signature, and Phil was like 84 when I got it or something like that. And one of our former Beckett teammates, Mary Campana, was on the back of a Lauren Meyer Upper Deck card, and I've got a signed card of that. It's kind of cool. It goes in my hobby signed card collection. And so I think it's kind of cool to have people in the background. But as Dr. Beckett pointed out, you do need the permission, especially when they're famous. There's actually a little bit of an infamous case of a person suing a card manufacturer. Why? Well, he was pictured with a lady on the card that wasn't his wife, and he was still married at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so you have to be careful. And that's sometimes why they don't do that, because all of a sudden we just did something we shouldn't have done. I mean, hey, you're taking her out in public. I get that.
Right.
But you don't expect to show up in the background of a card. So
Yeah,
I
right.
can see both sides of that argument, but that actually is, and I'm sure that if somebody wants to Google and do the case, they can find it. But it's a fascinating story.
Well, it's not fascinating to me in the sense that you just reminded me that, we got sued, Rich. Upper Deck got sued, and we got sued for publishing price guides and magazines and showing a picture of an umpire on the card, kind of incidentally, and the umpires said we're not getting paid for being on these cards. We're a big part of the game, and so you're not giving us any credit. You're not mentioning it in your magazines. That we're right there in the frame in the card, and we wound up having to settle that because it just was a nuisance. But they wouldn't go away. And Upper Deck, same thing. They were all over Upper Deck. Because they were in the picture. And if you airbrush them out, it seems like, how is that good?
Right, because then you have you got like a game going on without the umpires. Like, eventually maybe they'll move to the robot umpires, and then I don't know, maybe hopefully the robots will be cool with being on cards, maybe. But yeah, I mean I could see that being weird.
And there's the other lawsuit where Panini got sued for having Michael Jordan in the background. And making him not blurring him out, I guess, when he was fully licensed exclusively to Upper Deck. That was not. It was in the background of like a Scottie Pippen card or something, so it wouldn't have been hard to imagine. But they had a lawsuit over that.
Where's Paul Lesko when you need him?
Yeah.
But
right.
Jim, remember when maybe the first year or two, and it turned out we were absolutely right. We got sued at Beckett because we talked about PVC and the dangers it provided to cards and albums. And I will tell you, 30 years later, if on those rare occasions now, when I get something from a plastic, from a sleeve, a plastic sheet that had PVC on it, oh boy, you can tell the difference.
Good luck, getting it out.
Yeah. And so, Rich, I actually have an interesting question. For you working at ComC, do you guys have any type of is the person in the background, for example, is that like a type of card that you guys catalog at all? You have
if it's appropriate, we sure do. For example, if Kobe Bryant is guarding somebody, it's I call it the continuation line because that's what we called it at Beckett. But in the continuation line, guarded by Kobe Bryant. Or guarded by Michael Jordan in background, a photo. To me, it has to be somewhat important. Kenny Golden, I think, is one level below that. And on the Melendez brothers card, I just put famous people in background. I didn't want to actually put, the whole story out there. It's like, okay, you'll either figure it out or you won't.
Well,
right.
But we do put that on cards. There's a 1983 Topps Reggie Smith card when he was playing first base the last year of his career. Well, he's tagging or trying to tag Ryan Sandberg. That's also Ryan Sandberg's rookie card year. So that's kind of an important thing to put in. So absolutely, we put in when appropriate, guarded by somebody. And I think, if I see something come in, it's a legitimate request, I'll make sure it goes in because it's important. And because it might sell more cards, and anything that sells more cards helps ComC. So I look at it on a pragmatic viewpoint too, that any way I can get more cards sold and more cards into the world, that's a good thing.
Yeah. I definitely wanted to highlight this one. Yeah. Rich knows about that Sandberg card. Again, like I said, just so much knowledge of not even, I don't know if it's random necessarily, but it's stuff within the hobby that other people just don't know. It's really, it's obviously an honor to be on the panel with both of you guys. And I don't want to, toot your guys' horn too much, but I think you guys know how much knowledge you have in the hobby and seen so much change. And for example, that Sandberg card, I don't think many people know about that.
So Jim knows about the Sandberg too.
Well, Adam, it's again, like I said about Ted Xanadakis, basically it's not just that Rich is so encyclopedic, it's that he is willing to share.
Hmm.
and to share freely. And so I totally vote, Rich, for the Kenny Golden being mentioned.
Yeah.
I think it's hobby significant.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, okay. I will do that on Monday. I'll do that tomorrow. Actually, I work Sundays. I'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah, so I think this was actually kind of an interesting comment too. Before we move on to the next topic, is it would be cool to be in the background of a card at a game. I wonder, this it kind of when I see comments like this, sometimes it just gets my mind racing, and I'm like, what Tops probably could do something where they either get a photo from a game, like do some sort of Tops Now concept, and they, you maybe maybe they could sell a specific seat, and it's like they sell this seat, and it's like a top seat or something where you get a card if you buy this ticket, where you'll get a card with you in the background or something along those lines. I mean, I think I give Tops too many ideas, and I don't think I've got paid from them yet. So I'm gonna move on here just so that way I don't
No,
give.
Adam, that's a great idea, but I mean, it's just too easy to Photoshop.
Right, true.
I-
And there's so many card doctors and very talented card artists out there that could do that.
Right.
You give me a great idea. I can be on any card now.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Adam, remember in the 1990s, Upper Deck ran a contest to have somebody come on a card with Ken Griffey Jr. And it ended up being like a grandmother posed on the card with him, and she's on the card with him.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool. It was a cool concept, trying to get more people involved, and she's on the card.
Yeah. Right.
I
Exactly.
mean, and of course, they probably should have both people sign the card, but that's a different subject.
Right. Yeah.
Wasn't that Marge Schott?
Oh God, no.
She was on cards.
Yes, she was, but she wasn't on that one, thankfully.
Yeah.
All right.
Not
So
sure.
yeah, we'll
I'm sure. Yeah.
we've got the next topic here on the show. I mean, I feel like there's always info and there's always numbers about grading, but Gemrate, who works with Hobby News Daily, also has you can go to Hobby News Daily and see their updated statistics that they put out every day on the homepage. Obviously giving Hobby News Daily another shout out there, but these are PSA, CGC, SGC, and Beckett data from this past year. I mean, everybody is up. I think SGC, they did a lot of promotions, so them being up 29% definitely, I think, makes a lot of sense. Like, they worked with Tops on a lot of different promotions where you could get specials on, like, I think it was like the Bowman, I'm pretty sure they did, and then I think it was with Flagship as well. So the 29% is a significant number for a company that is trying to make their way into this kind of conversation as a top grader. I'll start with you, Rich. What are kind of your initial thoughts on some of these numbers?
As they used to say about Babe Ruth, the Ruth is mighty and shall prevail. PSA is currently mighty and shall prevail right now, and I'm just doing some rough math, so it's not as good, but they are 3.5x the other top three companies combined. That's pretty impressive, and they gained 21% from last year too. So whatever Nat Turner and his team is doing at PSA is working really well. I mean, that's over 1 million cards a month graded. That's a heck of a lot of cards. I mean, they're grading on a monthly basis almost as many as SGC is grading every single month. And
Right.
I mean, every single year. So that's how impressive that is.
Yeah, right. I agree. I mean, it's the numbers, you look at the grading numbers, and it really it's amazing how much higher these have become over the past, like, just couple years. Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you kind of a similar question. What are your kind of just initial thoughts on these numbers, just overall from this past year?
Well, I think PSA, obviously the market leader in volume for sure. SGC's has been very aggressive, and you can see the results of that. CGC always had a real strong TCG component, so they're riding that. And my old company, I think, is playing defense a little bit. I think so. That's their, hopefully, as we've said, they dispute that those numbers are that low, and yet, they need to continue to hire and improve their messaging so they can get more of the pie. They're clearly way behind PSA, and that's the only one we really ever looked at. We weren't trying to be better than anybody. We just wanted to be the best we could be, and clearly the BGS guys have a long way to go. But it's not the graders; it's kind of the marketing and some of that. So we'll see. I'm hoping 2024 is going to be a great year for them.
Yeah.
And yet, when you go to a show in the Dallas area, and granted, it is a local show, if you go to the Dallas Card Show at 700 tables, your primary grading company at the show, at the dealer's tables, is Beckett, BGS, BVG, but that's your primary grading that you will see. And so, if the numbers are askew, I mean, they could probably use their great home field advantage at the show to do even better. I mean, I would almost, if I were them, and this is not something they may or may not do, but I might even offer specials at the show. They've got a team already there. They're local. I think they can do turnaround grading and have it back the same day even, especially Thursday, Friday, the Thursday, Friday thing. And they can probably get stuff done where, specials at the show, because you don't have to worry about shipping them back. It's a 20-minute drive to their office now, if it's that long from the show. And I can tell you that because I live 5 minutes away from their new office, or 7 minutes away. And I can tell you that it's not that far. It's a pretty easy drive.
Well, I mean,
Right.
like Rich points out, it's not all so bleak. There's some silver lining in there, and like I said, I can't say all the things, but they have some announcements that are going to be in 2024 for that I think people will really like. But that needs to just happen.
Right.
And one thing SGC has done very well, that 29% is a significant boost. It's the highest boost of all the companies. But those $9 specials, and I don't know how much it costs, but I guarantee you, based on what I remember from back in my old days at Beckett, from what I was told it cost to grade a card in those days, that $9, they're making, SGC is doing quite well at $9, not super well, but they're making good coin with every $9 card, especially when it's the modern cards that
Right.
does not take that long to grade.
Well, Rich, they're clearly making gross profit. How much net profit, I don't know, but I know that they're making gross profit. If you just think, I want to grade another card, it's $9, but there's a lot of overhead that cuts into that. But again, as you increase your volume, which they're doing, so I think they're doing a lot of things right.
Well, and that's the point. That if you start getting people into your service at $9 a card, it's a loss leader. And when I say a loss leader, they're making money. Don't get me wrong, but it's almost, in today's world, people would think, oh, that's a loss leader, less than $10 a card. Oh, let me send them more cards, and then maybe let me use them for the higher services, so I have a consistency in the company I use to grade cards with.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I know we don't really think of it this way necessarily, but like coming from so I work in marketing. I've worked in marketing kind of my whole professional career, I suppose. Like one of the things I think, the customer acquisition, I think, is a very interesting concept for grading, because I think if you can get somebody to grade with you for the first time, and you can make their experience good, and you can help them with, or even teach them stuff, or help them with the grading and stuff along those lines, they're probably more likely to grade with that company rather than, spreading all of their cards out. Because then, especially too, I kind of am like this. Like, I like PSA the most, and if I'm going to get cards graded, I'm going to go to PSA, just because I want all the slabs to look the same. And I think there's probably a lot of people in the hobby that feel probably very similarly, like where they want all their cards to look the same, like when they have them either displayed or they have them, wherever they have them. So that $9 price point that SGC kind of ran with this year a lot, like, I think that is it's a way to get people in the door, and especially just because they're obviously really good at getting cards out pretty quickly. So that, I think that's also a good kind of point of Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. Point of I don't know exactly the word I'm trying. point of hurt. No, that's not what it is. I don't know. But so I just think for SGC, that's definitely what they've been trying to do this year. And that's probably why we've seen that growth. And so I'm actually just going to also pull up something from GemRate. They came out with a tool here. I hope it's large enough on here, but their tool has all, so they're using like the top 100 iconic cards, I believe, through PWCC, which I'm imagining they'll probably add to this eventually. But you can go in here and you can click on any of these iconic cards and you can see literally all the companies and what their grading is. And I mean, I'm a data guy, so I like looking at this stuff. And if you're not a numbers person or you're not into data, this might be a little bit boring. But like, I just think it's interesting. You can see that like how many cards are graded by each company. In this Mickey Mantle, you can see that, how many cards, and you have all the grades and stuff along those lines. So I think that the tool is a really good one. So this is just, this was a little bit of a tangent that I wanted to give a shout out to GemRate, because they did, they put out this tool, and it's really, I think it's really a good tool. And I'm actually going to go back to the data. So this was the sports and miscellaneous, because this was the total grading numbers, but then these are the numbers for sports, and then they also have the TGC numbers as well, which, I mean, you look at these numbers, like these are really, I think that this is what's driving a lot of those high percentages realistically, like, 66, 58, 60, 84. So, I mean, Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you this question. What do you think happened this year that would make these numbers be so significantly like what happened, do you think? Like, because these numbers, I mean, these are not just, these are all above 50% year over year change. So like, what do you think? Like, was there anything that you saw that happened this year that would make these numbers so much higher, you think?
There's been so much marketing and newsworthy events and record prices for a lot of these TCGs. So, I mean, there's an onslaught. And so all the companies are benefiting, even some that are not even on this list.
Right.
And if you've got a really pricey Charizard or something, you need to get a slab for protection.
Mm-hmm.
And, and so it's way bigger than we think. There's just, and with the rounded corners, I think they get better grades.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the risk reward is very much tilted in terms of reward.
Right.
I want to point out a couple things. One, when we talk about, take a look at those total numbers. SGC's number is almost all sports cards, because even though they have that big percentage increase, there was only 125,000, I believe, TCG cards done by SGC.
Yep. Yeah. 120.
And they have more than 1 million cards, I believe, graded for the year. That means sports cards are 90% of what they do. That's pretty impressive. That means they're doing a really good job of focusing on the sports card market.
Well, no, Rich, they weren't even doing the TCGs, and CGC in its prior life didn't do sports until 2 years ago, and so both of them are coming on strong to see that there's two big pies out there. There's the sports pie and the TCG pie, and PSA is still leading in both, but there's meat on the bone.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think too, like, if you look at the overall numbers within sports, like, obviously SGC is really the one that was the only one that really was up in sports. I mean, I think it definitely had to do with a lot of promotions that they were doing with Topps, and they were doing, like I said, the Bowman deals, and I think some of the flagship deals. So yeah, like Rich pointed out, those numbers, they graded in total 1.2 million cards, and 1.1 were all sports. So, do you like, and then also, like Dr. Beck was saying, with CGC, they were doing mainly, they had 1.4 for TCG, because that's their brand. And I think, I'll ask you this question, Dr. Beckett. Do you think that the companies can choose sort of how they want their brand to be perceived? Or do you think it's more of the marketing determine how the brands are being perceived?
I mean, CGC, for example, mothballed their CSG. They went to the stronger brand they felt was CGC. So there's no more CSG. It's all what is that, certified grading, whatever, something, CGC. It's what their original brand was. And so, yeah, brand is important. SGC, I think S stands for sports card, I think.
Sports Card Guarantee Company.
Yeah. Okay. So they're not going to change their brand, and Beckett is mainly sports, but for the longest time, our company had other non-sport activities that were significant. But the original was sports for me, for sure.
Right. And so I think we'll kind of, grading, there's always interesting data around grading. So I'm sure on most episodes we talk about grading and what's been going on. And so Rich, I'll kick to you one last thought on, these numbers, grading in general, like maybe what you're thinking about for 2024 when it comes to grading, or just kind of some of those in general before we move on to the last topic.
One thing you mentioned, I believe Ryan posted on a different post, he's added several new sets to his comprehensive grading list. So he is actually actively working on adding more items to that comprehensive grading list, which is only a benefit to everybody. It's been a long overdue thought, and I'm glad he's got the tech savvy and the chops to do that properly. And we should be thankful that somebody who, without any access to grind, is providing that information.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a blessing, and a good thing for all of us in the hobby. And that the more information like that we get, the better we are as a hobby, because then we can see what truly overall patterns are. And you also have to understand it will never be totally accurate, because people break cards out of holders and resend them in, and you might get an 8, you might get a 7, you might get a 8.5, and you wait, but you may hopefully you get the same grade every time, but it's not a guarantee. Or you can even, if you're taking the card out, you can even goof up the grading by taking the card out.
Right.
So you can, but it gives a good general guide for how the condition spectrum works for any card.
Right.
One quick thing about Ryan, Stasinski, because he's not just tech savvy, Rich. I mean, he is that, but he cares about the industry enough that he's just not going to turn the crank and pour out a universal pop report that doesn't take into account differences in nomenclature, the years, the way the sets are described, players, and all that. So if you had a perfect match, if everybody used the same nomenclature, yeah, you just turn the crank. But I think he cares. That's why he started with 100 iconic,
right?
Is because he could look at those and see, okay, what do they call that on this other registry? What do they call it? And so doing that was tedious. Now there probably are some rules that he can use for rolling it out in a bigger way. But again, he didn't do a shortcut, Rich, that would have been fraught with potential for errors. I think he cleaned up the data, which is what we always tried to do. You can parse the data, you can scrape the data, but at some point you've got to clean the data to make sure you're not being misleading.
I think you and I talked about that on one of our recent podcasts, how in yesterday's world, we had to deal with what was called private information. We might see a sale at a show, or we might get some information, but even that information, if we got it from our trusted regional correspondents or other people, was somewhat private, where today with all the auction houses and the eBays and you can get the history points on ComC and see what stuff sells for, and all that, you can actually see a lot of what stuff is actually selling for in front of your eyes. And I know that, back in the day, we even made sure when we were doing eBay, we factored in postage. We actually did factor in postage. We couldn't just say, okay, 100 cards for $30, but if shipping of $100 was considered to be $15, it wasn't 30 cents a card, it was 45 cents a card. So, but all that information, is now a lot more generally available. And that's why I wrote something on my Hobby News Daily comment about the most common thing you hear is, what is the comp?
Right.
Well, Rich, ComC also takes into account shipping when they do their SRPs. And again, that's a shout out there. I don't know if you had influence on that, but that
I don't have influence on that one, but
that's
that's
what you're saying. That's the right thing. It's what we used to do,
yeah.
and I noticed they're doing that in a algorithmic way. But yes,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the shipping. I mean, that's also something that I think maybe gets overlooked. I think sometimes when it comes to like buying and selling cards, like if you're shipping, the some of the money that goes into it can add up quickly if you're not keeping track of all that stuff. And so we got one last topic here. We're coming up on the top of the hour. This will be sort of something fun that I think Topps put out this past week with the end of 20. Let me just make sure with the end of 2023, obviously being last week, they kind of put out their list of what they thought were cards of the year. It went the dual auto, the Shohei Ohtani Babe Ruth, the Anthony Volpe Topps debut patch, the Brady autos, and then the Shohei Ohtani Trout card. Shohei Ohtani being on 2 of the 4 cards on this list. I'll start with you, Rich. What was your card this year was there a card on here that you thought that, well, I guess for Topps specifically maybe, or Panini, I suppose you can go either way, for your favorite card this year? Did you have one, or did you think that this was a good list that they put together?
Well, it was good for baseball, but I think my favorite story of the year was what they did with the Wembayama autograph cards, where anybody who got the redemption was, I believe, flown down to San Antonio, and then winning people were drawn, to get the grand prize card. And, and it was really just a nice event. And that's something Fanatics can do that I don't even think Panini has done as well. And that doesn't mean Panini can't do it or doesn't want to do it, but it means that Fanatics understood they had a really good marketing opportunity with that. And I think that's the story of the year. How there's been ups and downs with all the card companies, but I think a lot of what Fanatics / Topps has done has been very beneficial to getting cards out in front of the public. The publicity campaign for the Brady card was top notch.
Yes, definitely.
That was top notch, and it got outside the hobby as well. I mean, I'm a Yankee fan. I love the concept of the Volpe card, and I think last week when Mr. Newman was on, and he talked about how cards should be redemptions like that. Well, all those rookie debut patches are redemption cards, so you can't just feel for this pack looks thick, this must have that card. No, you get a redemption. You get the card with the redemption. It saves a lot of that. So I think there's a lot of positives Fanatics does, and I do understand we've talked about the negatives too that have come up, and that's the same for the other card companies. But I think the concept of a rookie debut patch in all sports going forward with an autograph of the player is a great concept. Will it change the hobby? No. Is it a great concept? Yes. And I mean, Fanatics, and I know I listen to, I know the Shohei Babe Ruth duel was the #1 voted card, but I think the Brady card probably had the most impact overall.
Right. Yeah. These were the numbers that because they put out a poll with these numbers, and these were the numbers. I think the final results. So this was the order. So I mean, Dr. Beckett, for you, like, was there any cards on this list that you thought maybe should have been on the list, or did you kind of agree with the list that Topps put out?
2 things. 1, 821 votes is not enough to really have a definitive answer. Right. And number 2, I just want to be on the record of saying, Adam, I agree with you. I think the least contrived card, the historical card, is Shohei striking out Trout. The others are fabricated. That's real history they captured right then. And so that's who won the year for me.
Yeah, the Shohei Trout card. I mean, like we've talked a lot about Hobby News Daily on the show, and I talked about that card on the episode.
I'm with you. I mean,
yeah.
I get that was Topps now, right?
Yeah. Yes.
That's a little bit of a negative, but like I say, the others are publicity stunts.
Right.
And Volpe hasn't done enough yet.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean with that patch, I think I would say I don't know if I were Tops here, I probably would have tried to just say like the patch cards in general and not use because I know they have used Volpe as sort of the marketing around that card specifically, but I don't know. At the same time, it's like if I guess it was card of the year, not concept of the year, I suppose. So that's maybe one reason why they had to pick one of the players. Um, they had to pick one of the cards and they couldn't pick both of them, I suppose. But yeah, I don't think I do think that a lot of these cards came out towards the end of the year. So I would be I would be interested to know if there were any cards earlier on in the year that didn't make the list that came out like early. And I mean, and honestly, it may maybe not because like all three of these cards came out in like the biggest products of the year, like Definitive, Topps Chrome, and then Bowman Chrome or Bowman Draft. So those are three of Topps' biggest products that they come out with every year. And yeah, I mean, like I said, we're kind of getting towards the end of today's episode. So I'll start with you, Dr. Beckett. Do you have any, closing thoughts? Do you have any suggestions as we go into this new year? This is our second show of the new year. Make sure you go back to Hobby News Daily on, Hobby Hotline. Jeez, I'm so used to saying the other. If you go to Hobby Hotlines, YouTube to watch the show on Tuesday. That was our first show of the year. This is our second one, and I think we've got the rest of the Saturdays. We don't do a
Tuesday night show anymore.
Yeah, that's
except for the one that was last Tuesday.
That was the last one.
Oh yes, that's correct. Okay, so never mind. Don't expect a show on Tuesday. Actually, sorry about that, everybody. So yeah, but Saturdays come back here. So yeah, Dr. Beckett, do you have any final thoughts, closing remarks for today's episode?
I think hobbyists, if they have a chance in 2024 to either be optimistic or pessimistic, choose optimism. Not unbridled optimism that everything's going to be perfect. But if two things work out good and one thing turns out bad in 2024, let's focus on the things that turn out good and try to build our industry. It's not just fanatics that's trying to 10x it. We want, to me, that's 25% a year over 10 years makes it 10x. But so can we make the hobby 25% bigger this year? Let's try for that.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and so Rich, I'll kick it to you. Any final thoughts for today's episode?
When we were talking about Topps card of the year, I think they missed a gimme in the discussion, which were the Topps Chrome buyback cards, the Otani and the Acuna. I know, for example, when I went to the triple card and the affiliates of triple card holiday party, my Secret Santa gifts were two, I think there was 2 Chrome blaster boxes. Well, I pulled a refractor Otani and a base Acuna out of the 2 boxes and promptly got $60 of store credit and spent another like $10 and bought another Heritage High number box.
Yeah.
I got a red Dusty Baker autograph. So I really can't complain about that.
Right.
That's a pretty nice pull for $10. I mean, yes, it's more than that. I get the story. So I think those are cards of the year because they keep the hobby stores going too. And I agree with Dr. Jim. Optimism always pays off. We have a Dallas card show in 2 weeks. And there are going to be several things, and I saw the post. So it's GTSM is bringing in several of the world champion Texas Ranger players, including hotshot young prospect Evan Carter, Marcus Semien, I want to say Chad Bradford, but that may or may not be right. And there's a 4th player too. And they all are very personable with people in public. And that's a very good thing. And, to me, that'll be the first really major show of the year. And if we get a good major, if that gives us positive momentum, we can carry that positive momentum for a long time. And then, just keep building on that. Right. And I think there's a lot in this hobby that we can be proud of. I mean, there's enough room for everybody. There's enough room for the person that'll go to a show, pay $2 admission and like going through dime and quarter or dollar value boxes. And there's room for, Kenny Golden to offer X amount of thousands of dollars for the one of Joel Embiid, where he's in the background.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's my. I have a similar closing message. I mean, I try and say this on most episodes. You know, people who are getting into sports cards, they're trying to enjoy cards the same way we all enjoy cards, and maybe in a different way. But so if they new people coming in, if they have questions and stuff, just be courteous, answer questions. Be nice to people. Like I think that's sort of always been my message on these episodes. Whenever I'm hosting or whatever I'm on, just make sure these help people, because helping people is always gonna be better for us in from the hobby perspective. So always just help as many people as you can, answer any questions you can, because at one point the people that are new coming in were in the same position as us when we were first getting started in sports cards. So that is all we have for today's episode. I want to thank everybody in the chat, everybody that was leaving comments for all over the globe. I think we were global today. Appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you come back here, Bench Clear Media, next Saturday, because we have another show, obviously weekly on Saturday. So make sure you come back for the show. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you in the next episode.